So are you a fan of sandalwood and fragrances? I've been receiving a lot of questions and comments and messages asking me to update my sandalwood fragrances video. And the last time I did a sandalwood focused fragrance review video was over 3 years ago, and I decided to put together a top 20 list today and in a ranked list of sandalwood fragrances. Are you a fan of sandalwood? Are you a fan of the most popular or one of the most popular sandalwood fragrances out there? I won't say the name of that fragrance until we get going with the video, but I've decided to leave that one off today as I'm not a fan of it. But I've got a top 20 list here with a couple of bonus options. If you're curious to learn about sandalwood and fragrances, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian. We're talking about sandalwood in fragrances today. Let me know your favorite sandalwood fragrances. Put a comment down below so I can find out. But yes, Santal 33 has been left off the list. Not a fan of it. Are you a fan of Santal 33? I know there are like loyal fans of that fragrance, and there's also a lot of folks that don't like the way that fragrance smells. A lot of times people say pickle juice. Do you get that from Santal 33? But I've left it off here, and then the list has probably changed a bit, and some things have moved around as well from past lists. What happened is there are obviously new fragrances here that I'm adding to the list, and then some of the fragrances where they used to be before have shifted around. But it's a great collection of sandalwood focused fragrances. And before we get moving with the video, I also want to say I personally prefer the creamy, milky variety of sandalwood versus the Santal 33 variety. Let me know what kind of sandalwood you appreciate. Now in this video there are fragrances that go in that creamy milky direction, but there's also some that are less creamy, more woody, dusty, and like wood shavings, but still don't smell like Santal 33. I have a hard time with that fragrance, and sadly there's way too many clones or dupes or inspired fragrances of that one. And unfortunately, not a big fan. But let's go ahead and get started with number 20. It's Juliette Has a Gun's Sunny Side Up. This one right here. A fun fragrance. It's also fairly inexpensive, and it's a great cozy fragrance. A bit sweet, but very creamy, lactonic. It has sandalwood, coconut milk. It has vanilla, some muskiness from ambrette, but for sure it has ISOE Super, jasmine, and amorous as well. It makes for a very cozy wear. Really love it. It's more of a skin scent, so some people like these kind of subdued, closer to the skin fragrances. Maybe a bit molecular as well, because Juliette Has a Gun does create fragrances like this. But definitely a great fragrance to start with. It is at the bottom. I prefer some of the others more, but this is Juliette Has a Gun's Sunny Side Up. And then moving on to number 19 with my very broken up bottle of Etat Libre d'Oranges. She was an anomaly, this one right here. Sadly, it broke, and it's actually, you know, like evaporating. I have to get another bottle. The reason this thing broke is it hit another bottle and it cracked on the side. But anyway, yeah, I do enjoy this fragrance quite a bit, but it is ranked at the bottom. It's more of a very powdery sandalwood fragrance, and it has loads of musk. And this is definitely fitting of the collection of Etat Libre d'Orange fragrances. I think it definitely fits their style of fragrances. But definitely very powdery from the musk note that's in here, and also creamy from the sandalwood. But it's more like a dry creaminess rather than this like milky, liquidy kind of creaminess. But there's also Ambrofix here, white blossoms, some frankincense, some plums and green mandarin as well, whereas the fruitiness and the citrusy touches are quite faint in this fragrance. They do, you know, create a little bit of a change in the fragrance when you're wearing it, but for me it's mostly about the very powdery musk. It's clean, and also that kind of creamy, powdery sandalwood that is in here. So she was an anomaly from the house of Etat Libre d'Orange. So this next one might be upsetting some people, and because it's from this very grand house that's known for very luxurious clothing. This is Chanel, and this is Bois d'Ile, this one right here. I tried to put this up at the top of the list. This is a fragrance that I haven't really clicked that much with, and lately I've actually fallen further out of love with it versus fragrances like Le Lion, Coromandel, Boy, Sycamore. I really love those fragrances. This one's kind of in the end there. It's it doesn't excite me too much, and so I wanted to highlight it still because it is, after all, Chanel. It's that very Chanel DNA style sandalwood fragrance with sandalwood, loads of it, but this is not the creamy milky variety. Once again, for me this is more like a dusting and a chipped kind of woods wear rather than the creaminess. But there's sandalwood, loads of it, Ylang-Ylang, resins, vanilla, woodsy notes, Tonka. You know, it's good. At one time I enjoyed it a little more, but for some reason when I was putting this video together it somehow ended up at the bottom more. But maybe you're a fan of it, maybe you don't like it, do let me know. This is Bois d'Ile from the house of Chanel. Then moving on to a house called PHLUR. This is Somebody Wood, this one right here. This to me is a combination of both creamy variety and then the dusting, chipping, wood chipping kind of variety of woods sandalwood. And it also kind of is a bit molecular as well. Not so much, just a little bit. I feel like there's some molecular notes under there. But Somebody Wood is a fun, interesting name. And PHLUR seems to be doing some great work with their fragrances. Definitely their fragrances are not overly expensive. They're sold at Sephora in addition to their website, and I think they're easily accessible. They're the non-designer fragrances that are a step, above the designer qualities, but still affordable and not extremely expensive. So if you like this kind of a fragrance and you're like new to the world of niche, I think this is a great house to begin with. And this one features bergamot, lemons, jasmine, saffron, cyclamen, sandalwood, vanilla, musk, amber, moss, and cedarwood. So in the end, it's very, very woody, and I feel like I'm getting the creamy variety from the sandalwood they're using in here, and the cedarwood that's in here is giving me that more dry and dusty and wood shavings kind of quality. There's some sweetness in there from the vanilla, light citruses, some muskiness in there as well. Really, I think it's pretty solid, but definitely I prefer the other fragrances more than this one, so that's why I put it here at number 17. So this is Somebody Wood from the house of PHLUR. Let me know if you are a fan of that house or that particular fragrance. Up next, going to the house of Van Cleef & Arpels from their collection Extraordinaire fragrances. This is Santal Blanc. I believe this is created by Michel Almerac. This one to me does hint lightly at Santal 33, but not of the entire fragrance, some parts of that fragrance that's in here. It's mostly the green notes, and that there's a fig note in here, so I feel like they're throwing in some fig milk to contrast against the sandalwood's creaminess to give you more of a further kind of a green milkiness. But in addition to the fig and sandalwood, there's musk, tonka beans, and violet. There's a freshness about this one. It's violet. Michel Almerac has created Fahrenheit, so he likes to use violet. And I definitely do pick this one up. There's a bit of a cucumber-like vibe thrown in there as well. Again, lightly reminiscent of Santal 33, but I much prefer this fragrance over Santal 33. Doesn't really go into the pickle juice direction, even though I love drinking pickle juice from pickles. But this is Santal Blanc, a really wonderful offering from the house of Van Cleef & Arpels. Then moving on to the house of Guerlain, this is Santal Pau Rosa, this one right here. This one also has a bit of the Santal 33 vibe. Can't get away from that DNA, but thankfully it doesn't fully go there. It hints at it a little bit, but in the end it's sandalwood combined with rose. There's this fresh pungent spiciness of cardamom, a bit soapiness thrown in there, lots of oud in here, and also myrrh. So it's a unique combination of rose and sandalwood where you have that kind of lightly reminder of Santal 33, but there's other things happening here, like rose doesn't exist in Santal 33, so it adds this kind of a jamminess here, some sweetness to the sandalwood, and then also that fresh, very, very fresh spice of the cardamom is a really nice contrast against the oud and the myrrh as well, to give you that kind of resinous, oudy, woody combo. I think it's pretty solid, but definitely not my all-time favorite. This is Santal Pau Rosa from the house of Guerlain. Next, we've got two fragrances tied. It's from the same house. It's KAYALI's The Wedding Velvet Santal 35, and this is the Wedding Silk Santal 36. So the black bottle is the more masculine, more woody, but still creamy, fragrance. And then the Silk Santal in the clear bottle is more sweet, less sandalwood, and more gourmand. So if you like these ideas, definitely try these two fragrances. The dark bottle, the male or the more masculine, I should say, I don't think these are like generally targeted to specific sex. They're just made one more masculine, one more feminine, I guess. But I like layering the two together, and it balances each other out and creates for a really nice combo of woods, creamy sandalwood, a bit milky, creamy sandalwood here. and then of course the sweetness that comes in from the silk santal. So the combination is great, depends on what you like. Wear them individually or layer them together. I like the sandalwood on its own here with the velvet santal, not necessarily very, sweet. And then of course the silk santal is sweeter, less sandalwood. So I feel like they're perfectly layered. So this is KAYALI, the wedding velvet santal 35, and then the wedding silk santal 36. Then this is probably a very popular sandalwood fragrance in the fragrance community. It's Santal Complète from the house of Complet, from the house of Fragrance du Bois. To me, it does act a little bit like something like, let's say, Jazz Club from the house of Maison Margiela. It's kind of a very sandalwood boosted, that kind of fragrance. So it has sandalwood, coconut, vanilla, amber, musk, lemon, violet, black pepper. But I feel like there's a little bit of a hint at something like the, Jazz Club from Maison Margiela. So if you like that fragrance, you might like this one. But it's also very creamy, smooth, sweet, and woody, and vanillic. And I feel like there's a little bit of that booziness in here that I get from the whole Maison Margiela Jazz Club thing. But I've also heard from folks that this doesn't last on them, and I've been recommending Sugar Addict from the house of Born to Stand Out quite a bit lately, and I feel like they would really blend well together. It'll sweeten up the fragrance as well here, and you'd have a longer lasting experience with Santal Complète when you layer it with something like Sugar Addict from the house of Born to Stand Out. So that's Santal Complète from the house of Fragrance du Bois. Alright, up next, going back to the house of Guerlain, it's at number 12, Santal Royal, this one right here, for a very Middle Eastern style sandalwood fragrance, and once again combining it with rose. Here we had it in Santal Pau Rosa as well, and then we also have it in Santal Royal, but I prefer Santal Royal over Santal Pau Rosa, less expensive also here, although my ribbon is kind of gone missing. This is to me like very oudi and sandalwoody at the same time, and rose as well. It's the rose oud combo with an overdose of sandalwood, and they're focusing on sandalwood with the name Santal Royal. In addition to those notes, you've got leather, cinnamon, amber, and peaches, so lightly fruity, very ambery, overdose with the spiciness, and it's very, very warm, spicy from the cinnamon, and of course leather, rose, sandalwood, oud, those are all kind of found in like Middle Eastern style fragrances. But a wonderful offering from this house. The very first one in this collection, definitely worth checking out. It's Santal Royal from the house of Guerlain. Then moving on to the house of Affinessence, this is Santal Basmati. If you like the idea of rice in fragrances, this is really, really great for the rice note. I feel like it's also a very subdued fragrance. I wish it was a bit stronger. For me, it's not so strong, and that's why it's a bit ranked low. But I like the combination of the sandalwood. It's milky, it's creamy, it's powdery, along with that basmati rice, which has its kind of lightly nuttiness. And also, it does have a bit of milkiness to begin with as well, the basmati rice note. And the two together is really a match made in heaven. Smells fantastic. I just wish it was a little stronger. But in addition to the sandalwood and the basmati rice note, we've got cashmeran, iris, and patchouli to create a really wonderful, very sexy smelling, sandalwood fragrance, but always wishing it was a little stronger. So check that out. It's Santal Basmati, and let me know if you're a fan of that fragrance. But moving on to the house of Maître Parfumeur Gantier, it's Santal Noble for a really great sandalwood from a more classic house. Really love this one because they've combined sandalwood with coffee. There's castoreum, oakmoss, so it's a bit animalic, but really nice woody fragrance with that kind of almost gourmand contrast of the coffee against the sandalwood. And the sandalwood in here is not necessarily the very creamy, milky variety. It's more like chopped, shaved woods kind of an experience. And the castoreum gives you a bit of a leathery edge with this one as well, taking it to a bit of a classic direction in addition with the oak moss as well. So really, really great offering. One of my favorite fragrances from this house, but I feel like this house is known for Ambre Perso, but they definitely have other fragrances. So this is Santal Noble from the house of Maître Parfumeur Gantier. Next up, going to the house of Eccentric Molecules with Molecule 4, this one right here. This is a synthetic recreation of the smell of sandalwood with the usage of a note called javanol. So basically it's a simplistic, minimalistic fragrance. If you like the idea of that creamy, milky, cozy, comforting sandalwood experience with a synthetic molecule of javanol, this is the fragrance for you. For me, it really does smell like a very creamy variety of sandalwood, and it's also very super cozy and comforting, as I said. And this is also perfect to layer with other fragrances. For example, if you discover a fragrance you love has sandalwood and you want to boost it up, you can layer this with that so it'll make the fragrance last longer. Or if you have a fragrance, maybe perhaps a vanilla or a musk, that you think the creamy coziness of this fragrance would be perfect for, you can do that with it as well. But on its own, it's really great, and I love it for that. It's Eccentric Molecules Molecule 4. Super amazing fragrance. I love that line for its minimalistic fragrances. Next, going to the house of Dunhill. It's Indian Sandalwood. Man, this is such a great fragrance from this house. Out of the entire collection of these more higher end fragrances from Dunhill, focusing on individual notes, Indian Sandalwood is my favorite. Really super delicious with sandalwood. There's orris, cypriol, carrot seed, patchouli, and bergamot. And for me, it's super cozy, super lactonic and milky, creamy, powdery. The orris is definitely there. And the orris butter or orris note in general gives you more of a boost of creaminess against that really creamy sandalwood. And that cypriol, papyrus, kind of similar notes, is very prominent in Santal 33. Thankfully, this does not remind me of Santal 33, but it is a really, really great sandalwood fragrance. One of the best, I think. Still, I prefer the others a little more, but this is Dunhill's Indian Sandalwood at number 8. And then I'm putting this in a sandalwood list. Maybe some of you might not associate this with sandalwood, but this is Amouage's Guidance, this one right here. It has a pretty prominent sandalwood note. I think the most prominent notes in this fragrance are cistus labdanum, sandalwood, and also some fruity notes like pear, but also rose. But for me, I get this milky lactonic quality here, and somewhat hints at the milky lactonic qualities of Dalina from Parfums de Marly, which Quinton Biche also created. And also that milkiness kind of reminds me of a little bit of like Intense Cafe from Montal, but not necessarily like full-on milkiness. This is more like sandalwood milkiness. But it's a super, super delicious fragrance. It does have rose and it does have pear, lots of floral notes like jasmine, sambac, or saffron, the rose and the osmanthus. And then of course it's got vanilla, a Kigala wood, which is one of the fragrance notes that Quinton Biche uses quite a bit. So this is Guidance from the house of Amouage. Check that out if you don't know it. Up next, going to the house of Atelier Materi. It's Santal Blonde. This one right here for a really overwhelming sandalwood fragrance. This is a creamy and dusty, dry wood shavings variety of sandalwood, and it smells a bit soapy as well because I feel like there's an overdose of cardamom in this. It's sandalwood, hinoki bourbon, tonka, cardamom, bergamot, jasmine for a really, really great fragrance experience with the sandalwood here. Santal Blonde, meaning blonde sandalwood, and I think the perfumer did a great job with this one. I think that's the same perfumer as Reflection Man from Amouage. I think it's Lucas Suizac. But a great, great fragrance. This house is very underrated and they have really, really wonderful offerings. If you guys are interested in a good quality, fragrances and going in different directions with the different notes they focus on for each fragrance, definitely check out this house. And they have a really, really great sandalwood fragrance, which is Santal Blonde, and I'm talking about it here. So Santal Blonde from Atelier Materi. Then it's a usual suspect, Tam Dao EDP from the house of Diptyque. This is probably one of the best sandalwood fragrances out there on the market. Really a wonderful offering. I prefer the EDP over the EDT, the Eau de Toilette. I prefer the EDP because it's definitely much more potent, much more robust, and the creaminess really comes through as well. The freshness of the EDT, you don't experience the creaminess of the sandalwood much, but here, since it's thickened up with the perfume oils for the EDP, you experience that really kind of cozy creaminess of the sandalwood. But for me, it's basically a woods overdose, sandalwood, cedar, cypress, and then there's some spice thrown in of coriander. A wonderful offering. Tam Dao from the house of Diptyque. This next one, man, it's so good. And in the Extrait de Parfum concentration, once again, it is magical fragrance. It says Paris Monte Carlo Santal Pacifique. Santal du Pacifique Extrait de Parfum. Basically, this is sandalwood and floral notes. Light floral essences come through, hitting the sandalwood note. And the sandalwood is the coziest, creamiest, milkiest variety. Man, it's really intoxicating and super delicious. It's almost like gourmand woods, but there's no gourmand notes here. The sandalwood acts that very, very heavy cream variety, but it's mostly woods, and creamy woods is basically what you're experiencing. The floral notes that are in here are light, as I said. It's nice contrast against all that woodiness, and it's nondescript florals, maybe some magnolia, maybe some light jasmine, a bit, not tuberose, but maybe something like that, very lightly thrown into the flower flowers to give you a little bit of a contrast against the heavy dosage of sandalwood in here. Really great fragrance. This is Paris Monte Carlo Santal du Pacifique Extrait de Parfum. Then moving to the house of Parlez-moi de Parfum, this is Milky Musk 39. Do you guys familiar with this one? This smells so delicious, really, really. Once again, we got a very creamy, milky variety. That's why it's called Milk Musk. It's musky, it's woody, it's also a bit figgy, but in the end, it's sandalwood overdose here, and it wears wonderfully, really, really wonderfully. I wish they had an extrait de Parfum of this one. It would have moved up, but man, this is really, really good. It's kind of like a Woods Gourmand once again. No gourmand notes, but you're experiencing gourmand touches from what they've thrown in here to create this sandalwood note fragrance. Milky Musk, or Milk Musk I should say. Wonderful offering from the house of Parlez-moi de Parfum. Also, I should say this does not smell like Milky Musk from Molten Brown. They're totally different. This one focuses on sandalwood, over the top sandalwood. The other one is more gourmand to me, more musk and gourmand notes. Anyway, Parlez-moi de Parfum Milk Musk, I'm getting confused there. Milk Musk 39 from Parlez-moi de Parfum at number 3. Then at number 2, it's Un Nuit Nomade's Nothing But Sea and Sky. Oh man, this is so good. The top 5 for me, or maybe the top 4, are the best of the best in sandalwood fragrances. And I absolutely love these. They're just the coziest variety of sandalwood fragrances. For me, they make them very, very comforting, very soothing, and relaxing woody fragrances. I get bored of woody fragrances, and that's what I like about the woody fragrances of milky sandalwood note. It's really, really, I think just because I like gourmand notes, there's a sweetness about them, the coziness about them, all that comes to mind with these fragrances. With Nothing But Sea and Sky, it's bergamot, sandalwood, white musk, some milky notes. Very, very cozy and lactonic. Very, very fresh as well, but lots of dense woods together. Really, really awesome offering. This house is definitely one of my favorite niche houses. They have some really, really great fragrances, and this Nothing But Sea and Sky is definitely one of their best, I think. So this is Un Nuit Nomade's Nothing But Sea and Sky at number 2. Number 1, can you guess it? What is it? This is L'Orchestre Parfum Piano Santal, and this is sandalwood with milk to give it very creamy consistency when you're wearing it. It's super delicious. Absolutely one of the best sandalwood fragrances out there. Although, like I said, top 4 is the best. I can probably move them around. But Piano Santal, the sandalwood and milk together, makes for an amazing combination. Along with those two notes, you also have Cashmeran, white musk, and Ambroxan. So you get very musky and ambery at the same time. Ambroxan, remember, I always say it adds a dryness to fragrances, but this is so cozy and comforting with the creaminess of the sandalwood and the milk. I think it cuts through that dryness. It just, amplifies the muskiness that's in here along with the white musk note and the Cashmeran note. Really awesome fragrance. Definitely deserves to be number 1. This is Piano Santal from the house of L'Orchestre Parfum. Who's familiar with that house? Let me know. Put a comment down below so I can find out. And that's basically it for you. That's the rank list of top 20 sandalwood fragrances. Let me know if you enjoy this note. Let me know if you enjoy other woodsy notes. I always say I'm a bit bored of woodsy fragrances. Get boring because they're kind of, they're perfect to combine with a lot of other notes, but on their own they kind of become a bit boring. Like pine I really love, but like cedar can get really boring, but when they're combined with other things, they're great. Sandalwood, on the other hand, has a really, really great luxurious woodsy note, especially if it goes into the creamy variety. So I tried to select as best as possible with the list of sandalwood fragrances. Let me know if you know these fragrances. Let me know what's missing off the list. Let me know if you're a fan of Santal 33 or if you're not a fan of Santal 33. Put a comment down below so I can find out. But either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. Alright, we've got 2 fragrances that I left off in the bonus section here because I didn't make the top 20, but if I was to rank these, this would be 21 and 22. First off is Santal Volcanique, this one right here. In the end, it's sandalwood, more on the dry side, not necessarily the creamy variety. And it's basically dry, woodsy, shaved woods experience with the sandalwood along with ginger, coffee, ylang-ylang, cardamom, lime, musk, and cedar. I think it's a pleasant fragrance. against all the rest of the fragrances, I don't enjoy this one as much, but I know there might be fans of this one. You definitely notice the ginger and the coffee in this one, and also the cardamom. So you got a bit of that kind of cardamom coffee-like vibe against the sandalwood and the ginger. But anyway, I think it's pleasant fragrance, not a top 20 for me. So that's Santal Volcanique. And this next one for me, it's mostly more about orange versus sandalwood, but I put it here just as a bonus option. Essential Parfums Orange X Santal. Basically, it's lots of bitter orange with sandalwood. There's basil, oak moss, and cypress. It's basically, when you spray it, you get this kind of creamy, woody orange overdose with this one. So it's got the juicy citrus orange note in here against that creamy variety of sandalwood with some notes of like basil and some aromatic touches of cypress and oak moss coming in. It's a good fragrance, but definitely not my top of this house. And same thing with Santal Volcanique. I prefer some of their other fragrances more, but definitely wanted to give them a shout out here as bonus options in case you guys might want to check them out. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in today. Have a good one. Goodbye.